real talk. You're walking around right now with a dead dog. I mean that literally. Well, sort of. There's this guy, retired military officer, totally normal in every way except one. Every single night he puts on his coat and walks his dog for hours, talks to it, the whole thing. Only problem, the dog's been dead for 10 years. He doesn't know. His brain won't let him know. And before you think, that's sad, but that's brain damage, listen, you're doing the exact same thing right now with your own memories. So here's the thing about memory. You think it works like your phone, right? Like there's a camera in your head recording everything, saving it somewhere, and when you need it, you just hit play. That's how it feels. You close your eyes and boom, there's that birthday party from when you were 7, the smell of the cake, your mum's voice. It's right there. Except it's not. There is no video file. There's no archive, no hard drive in your skull with folders labeled high school and that embarrassing thing from 2019. Your brain doesn't store memories. It rebuilds them every single time. When you remember something, anything, your brain is constructing that memory from scratch right now, this second. It's taking bits of data scattered all over and piecing them together into something that feels like a cohesive experience. But it's not retrieval, it's construction. You're not watching a recording, you're building a set and walking through it. And here's where it gets uncomfortable, because if you're building it right now, that means the memory changes based on right now. Your current mood changes the memory. Your current beliefs change the memory. What happened this morning, who you're angry at, whether you're hungry, all of it bleeds into what you remember. You think you're remembering the past, but you're not. You're remembering your current interpretation of the past, the story you're telling yourself today about what happened back then.
That argument you keep replaying where you were totally right, you've probably edited it 15 times without realizing. That childhood trauma you think defines you, your brain has rewritten it based on everything you've learned since. The memory feels solid, but it's basically quicksand. And look, I know that sounds like some philosophical BS, but it's literal neuroscience. Your memories are plastic, malleable, not fixed. But wait, it gets way stranger than that. Let me tell you about this guy. VA hospital, psychiatric ward. Retired military officer, we'll call him the Major. And if you met him during the day, you'd think he was completely fine. Sharp, articulate. He could tell you stories from the 70s in crazy detail. Funny guy, dignified. But there was a hole, a massive gap in his brain. He couldn't form new short-term memories, like at all. You could have a whole conversation with him, leave the room for 5 minutes, come back, and he'd have zero memory of ever meeting you. So every night, every single night, the Major would do this thing. He'd get up, put on his heavy trench coat right over his hospital pajamas, and start walking, up and down the corridor, for hours, just walking. And if a nurse stopped him, asked him what he was doing, he'd look at her like it was obvious. "I'm walking, Jack," he'd say. "The weather's terrible tonight, but the dog needs his exercise." Here's the thing, Jack, his dog, had been dead for over 10 years. The Major couldn't remember that Jack was gone. His brain couldn't hold that information. But he faced this impossible problem. If he's not Jack's owner, who is he? That was his identity. That was his role. Without it, his sense of self would just collapse. So his brain did something wild. It filled the gap. It invented a reality. Every night, his brain literally resurrected the dog, created this hallucination so the Major could keep being himself. He wasn't lying. He wasn't trying to trick anyone. His brain was just building a world that made sense. A world where he still knew who he was. There's a term for this, confabulation. Your brain filling in missing pieces with fiction to keep your story intact. And look, that's heartbreaking, right? But here's the gut punch. Before you think, well, that's brain damage, that's not me. Listen, you're doing the exact same thing, right now, with your own memories. Okay, so there's this famous experiment, and it's going to make you question literally everything about why you do what you do. There's this psychologist, Michael Gazzaniga, and he's working with these patients who've had split brain surgery. Basically, they've severed the connection between the left and right hemispheres of their brain. Sounds extreme, but it was a treatment for severe epilepsy, and it worked. But it also created this weird situation where the two halves of the brain couldn't talk to each other anymore. So Gazzaniga runs this test. He shows these patients 2 different images, one to each hemisphere. Your right brain controls your left hand, your left brain controls your right hand and speech. Stay with me. He shows a picture of a chicken claw to the left brain. shows a picture of a snowy field to the right brain. Then he puts a bunch of objects in front of the patient and says, point to what matches what you saw. The right hand, controlled by the left brain that saw the chicken, points to a picture of a chicken. Makes sense. The left hand, controlled by the right brain that saw the snow, points to a shovel. Also makes sense. You need a shovel for snow. But here's where it gets wild. The researcher asks the patient, why did your left hand point to the shovel? Now remember, the verbal left brain never saw the snow. It has zero information about why that hand pointed to a shovel. Logically, the guy should say, I don't know, right? He doesn't. Without missing a beat, he goes, oh, that's easy. You need a shovel to clean out the chicken coop. His brain just made that up. Instantly. A perfect, logical story to explain something it never witnessed. It saw a chicken, saw a shovel, and went, clearly these go together because of the chicken coop. Total fabrication. But the patient believed it completely. This is what your brain does, all the time. Gazzaniga calls it the interpreter module, this part of your brain that's constantly generating explanations for your actions. You do something, act on an impulse, make a choice, and milliseconds later, your brain invents a reason, a story, and you believe it's the real reason. We think we're rational. We think we know why we do things. But most of the time, we're acting first, then making up the story after. You're not remembering why you got mad at your partner. You're creating a narrative right now that justifies why you're still mad. You're not recalling why you chose your career. You're building a story that makes that choice make sense. We're all the major. We're all walking phantom dogs, carrying around old stories, old identities, old grudges. And our brain keeps resurrecting them because without those stories, we don't know who we are. So what does this actually mean for your life? Look, here's what this means. You're walking around with dead dogs. Plural. Right now. Those old grudges you're still holding? That thing your dad said when you were 12 that you still think about? That belief that you're not a math person or bad with money or just anxious, that's who I am. Dead dogs. All of them. You're putting on your coat every night and walking them. And just like the major, you don't even realize they're not real anymore. Or maybe never were. Think about it. I'm shy. Okay, but are you? Or did something happen when you were 7? Maybe you got laughed at in class and your brain went, cool, that's our story now. We're the shy kid. And you've been walking that story ever since. 30 years later, you're still telling yourself you're shy, even though you give presentations at work and text your friends constantly. Or, my family doesn't understand me. Maybe that was true when you were 15, but you're 35 now and they're different people and you're different, but the story's still running. Your brain keeps resurrecting it because without it, you'd have to rethink your whole identity. Here's the question that changes everything. How much of this is actual memory versus just the story you've been telling yourself for so long you forgot it was a story? Because if your identity is just the story you're telling yourself about your past right now, like literally right this second, then you can change the story. I'm not saying nothing bad happened. I'm not saying gaslight yourself into thinking your trauma wasn't real. That's not it. What I'm saying is, you're the one interpreting it. You're the one deciding what it means about who you are today. The same event can be the worst thing that ever happened to me and I'll never recover, or something painful that taught me what I actually need. Same facts, different story, and you get to pick. That's the liberating part. You're not trapped by your past. You're trapped by your current interpretation of your past. And that you can change. Tonight, if you want. So what do you actually do with this? Alright, one thing you can try, like actually try, tonight before bed. Pick one core belief about yourself, something you just accept as true. I'm bad at relationships. I'm not creative. I'm the anxious one. Whatever. Now ask yourself, where did this come from? What's the actual story I'm telling? And here's the thing, you don't have to deny what happened. That's not it. Just see if you can tell that same story differently. Not lying, just reframing. So, I'm bad at relationships becomes, I've learned a lot from past relationships. Same facts, different story. One keeps you stuck, the other gives you room to grow. Or I'm just anxious becomes I'm someone who feels things deeply and I'm learning to work with that. See, you're not erasing anything. You're just changing what it means about who you are right now. Try it, see what happens. Worst case, nothing changes and you wasted 2 minutes. Best case, you realize you've been carrying a dead dog for years and you finally put it down. Your call.